we're all just players on a football team. And if you can't block and tackle or hit or run the plays that we need, then we can't use you. We have to find someone that can block and tackle. It's not like mean. We just have to find someone else to play outside linebacker because they can move and read the play and then hit the A gap with vengeance. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Overlap Podcast. A quick hit this time, we think. But we tend to ramble, so hopefully it's a quick hit. If not, we're just adding extra value. Welcome back to the Overlap Podcast. And, like we say all the time, if you're new or just coming back to the Overlap, it's been a little while, here's what we do here. We discuss and study the overlaps between work, fitness, family, faith, parenting, and leadership. All with the idea that becoming better in one aspect of your life helps you become better in all aspects of life. And we're trying to do that by simplifying big business brilliance for small business leaders. And that always sounds vaunted, like a very lofty goal, but the idea really sprang from Keith and I listening to tons of business podcasts and having tons of conversations before we ever started this, usually on the mats, the jiu-jitsu mats, or laying on the floor after a CrossFit workout, and just going, man, there's not lots of small business podcasts that really take these basic concepts that everyone sort of craft into a big business package because maybe they're selling bigger ads or I don't know why. But we wanted to take all of that and boil it down for you, the listener, that we know 80% of you or 80% of the working population in the United States works for a small business. And so, or runs a small business or leads a small business or is related to someone. It's small business really drives the economy. And that's the idea. And so happy to be here. Happy to be, I guess, almost 4 years in. We'll be looking at the fourth year, right?
We will.
And that leads us to really kind of an end of the year review in talking about what we do. And again, taking some big business concepts of annual meetings and things like that and really trying to break it down into more palatable size and I guess format for just the everyday guy or girl. So that's the idea for today. How you been, Keith?
I'm great.
That's good to hear. Listeners, I've known Keith a long time, and I've never seen him work as much as he has this year. When he usually he's been off work for like 4 weeks at this point, and I just kind of keep checking in with him every once in a while and like, man, is this guy going to explode? Because I don't know if he's used to this, but he has worked a lot this year, and I'm excited to have a conversation with him today about what his thoughts are on the end of this very busy year for him. And this has been a pretty tough year for me as well. So we thought we would have just a discussion about end of the year reviews and annual meetings and vision summits and things of that nature. So why don't you get us started, Keith?
When I first started business, I never differentiated between the end of the year and the start. It just like flowed through because you got all the crap happening and you're starving to death, so you don't even worry about it. But it would leave me, I would go into the New Year's and be very like perplexed because I had no plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started doing my vision summit, as I call it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard that.
Yeah. So when I started doing that, it really started, and I've been doing it probably 7-8 years now.
That's about when I heard it first.
Yep. And I get off by myself and take a day or so to just kind of reflect on the last year, where I've been, where I want to go. Am I going in the right direction? Am I going backwards? And so I think it's really important to talk about the end of the year and like use it as maybe a reflective state of, am I going where I intend?
Yeah. There's a really famous quote, and people have shaped it to maybe more modern times, but Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, because you're talking about life, business, everything in general. And then Keith Cunningham says something along the lines of, a business or maybe a life without frequent recalibration is always off target.
Yeah, definitely so.
So, and really, you ever heard of the book Flight Plan?
No.
Either way, it's a pretty awesome book by a guy named Brian Tracy. You've heard of that guy, right?
Yeah, I've heard of Brian
Man,
Tracy.
He's got a great voice.
He does.
Brian Tracy, and essentially, he sort of talks about building your goals like a flight plan. If you want to fly from, LAX to Honolulu, you're going to go in a certain direction, but wind speeds and all that stuff, all those things kind of like hit you, and you got to keep recalibrating and going. And I spent time in the Coast Guard, and in one of the jobs was like driving the ship, and you constantly had to get new measurements, and you had like 7 points of measurement, so like GPS, and you even went old school with a sextant and like shooting azimuths and stuff like that. And it's like you're constantly checking where you are, but before you ever get going, you need a flight plan, charting your path to where you want to go. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I think the end of the year is a good time to see where your flight plan's taking you and how either on course or off course you are.
Yeah, where do you want to go? This next leg of the trip.
I think most of the time most of the population is in such fight or flight that they have no perspective of where they are.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say about that, but I'll try to just listen a little bit more as you're unwrapping this.
I know that I've been there. I mean, how many times have you been there?
Yeah,
Yeah. How many times have I not planned and ended up somewhere I don't want to be, in business, in life, in marriage, in family? Think about the overlaps there.
Yeah.
But you were talking, and the reason I suggested that we do this is you were talking the other day. We were texting back and forth, and you said, "Hey, I'm getting ready for my annual meeting." And I thought, well, we probably should talk about, your expectations there. And because your annual meetings and my vision summits are two different things, but it accomplishes the same thing. But you are a little more formalized in the structure of it because you have to be, because you have more employees and the way that your business works, team members. Yeah.
Employees show up late, they leave early, and they steal from you.
Yep.
Team members, you don't have to like them all, although I like to like them all, but they're at least on the same team and they're rowing in the same direction and trying to help us all win. I think annual meetings are for, a business, and we do them with all of our businesses. And that, godly, let me back up. That sounded like I'm something, and I'm not. I'm not. So I own a landscape company, guys. It's not that big of a deal, but there's a lot of people there involved, and I need to take, and here's what kind of I was talking about with Tim, our producer, just a little bit before, is that I'm not that big of a deal. I own a landscape company, but there's a lot of people that work there. And if they decided that they're going to join our team and, make their living by being on our team, I owe all of those people the responsibility to do my job really well. And part of my job is making damn sure that we're moving in the right direction and reflecting on the year that was. And there's lots of mistakes this year. And what can we do to clean those things up to be profitable? Not that these guys are thinking about being profitable all the time, but they all want a better future. And at work, and this is kind of what this podcast is about, at work, that's the vehicle to a better future. If we can be more profitable, if we can be more efficient, then we can create more margin, and that margin can be spread amongst everyone else, and they can have more or better benefits. They can have better tools, better equipment. They can make more money. They can help grow the business and create more layers of management and move out of the field into management. All kinds of beautiful things can happen if a business runs really well. And you can't really do that, like you were saying, if all you're doing is running full steam ahead without stopping and seeing, well, is the direction we're running the right direction? Well, how have we tripped ourselves up along the way? What can we do to avoid those mistakes next year? And I just think that there's tons of lessons to be learned throughout the year, whether it's a good year or a bad year. And I feel like the last 2 years for our organization has been lots of changes, and I wouldn't even say turmoil, but there's been lots of I don't even know if mistakes, but maybe losses. And if you've ever done, you guys know we talk about jujitsu or martial arts or wrestling in general, combat sports, maybe in football too, or baseball or soccer. My background's in soccer, and I don't know that I really learned this and that, but you either win or you learn. And what that really means is you learn a lot more from your losses, in the sense of it's hard to be humble and learn when you beat someone. I'm rambling to just say that the annual planning meeting is a culmination of where we're going to go, how we're going to get there. But first, let's look at what did we do this year? What did we do well? Keep, start, combine kind of stuff, or keep, cut, kill, whatever. And just taking all of that and trying to come up with a new good plan in our flight plan towards the destination we want to be at this time next year. I feel like there was a lot of dumping there. Sorry. I hope I didn't ramble too much. But so our annual meeting is set up in a 2-day offsite. Again, that sounds very fancy, but we just rent a house down on the beach because we're relatively close. So it's like 30 minutes away. Happens to be in December in Gulf Shores, Alabama, where no one's renting that stuff anyway. So you can get it relatively cheap. It allows the leadership team to stay together and eat meals together and really spend a lot of time during the meeting, but then also have like some of those just informal conversations before, during, and after that start to generate tons of ideas, because you're going to have lots of ideas and you can accomplish a lot during that meeting time. And let's say that's from 8 to 5, but man, you're thinking about it and talking about it, or you have an idea after your shower, before dinner or after dinner, and you're sitting in a hot tub or something like that, or taking a walk. You can have lots of other ideas, and you can have conversations about it and flesh those things out if you've dedicated some time to spend with that team. So that's good. And then I like this, really what you're talking about too, in a vision summit, or maybe it's a less formal annual meeting in family life,
Yeah. So we rented a house for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, this year. And we rented it like right down the road from our house. It's literally 7 minutes from the house that we currently live in, but it's on the river.
Yeah,
it's a different place. We're gonna have the kids in to do Christmas there, and just be on the river. And then for the next week after Christmas is when my wife and I kind of look at each other and say, where have we came from? What did this year look like, and where do we want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And being that we're a family business and we both work in the business, we kind of set and put ourselves in a place where we say, here's the responsibilities that I'm taking, and here's the responsibilities that you're taking this year, and let's move forward.
Mm. You know what the one thing that's super important about this is that we both change sceneries, I think lots of people try to just make it convenient, make it inexpensive or whatever. And I'm not knocking that, sorry. But make it convenient by having their annual meeting at their place of business, in their conference room, in their office or whatever. Or they have their family one in their living room. And maybe that's the only thing you can do. But if you change your scenery, it's funny, it's strange how much it changed your state of mind. You can separate from the day-to-day a little bit and start to think outside the box instead of reactionary and proactive and not proactive, but reactive. when you were talking about, I think at first just getting away, and you were saying lots of people just move through life, just day to day with blinders on. Essentially, is what you were saying in my interpretation.
It would be very hard for Stephanie and I to sit in our house with plumbing issues,
right?
Yeah,
on the same couch you sit on all the time
and reflect.
Yeah, right. With the same drippy faucet or whatever,
right.
The AC is going to go, whatever, or the same people just stopping by just to see how you're doing, stuff like that. And I'm not knocking that, but if you're going to do some planning, you need some solitude or at least a change of scenery, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. And for you, it would be very difficult for you to do an annual meeting with me pressing my face to the window of your conference room door.
Yeah, exactly. Listener, what I'm expressing and trying to encourage you, number one, have an annual meeting, because a life without living is not, a life unexamined is not worth living, or, a business without frequent recalibration is always going to be off target. So have an annual meeting so you can look at where you've been and where you want to go. Make sure you're not running aggressively in the wrong direction. But then really one of the secrets is change scenery. Get someplace else. I don't know that you got to rent a beach house or anything. But maybe just go to a coffee shop.
Well, and I realize that everyone doesn't have the luxury of Harris Vacations.
That's true.
To provide the annual meeting spot for both of us.
That's a good plug. Yeah, both of us are at Harris Vacation Rentals in Gulf Shores.
Yeah. Who's now moved to Fish River. Has a property on Fish River now.
Yeah. I want to take a moment to talk about someone who's been instrumental in my personal and business success. That's Johnny Barranco and his team at Barranco and Associates. For over 7 years, Johnny has been my go-to accountant and financial consultant. I can tell you that he's more than just a tax preparer. Johnny takes a holistic approach to all my financial dealings, aligning them with my long-term plans and personal lifestyle. I've recommended Johnny to several friends throughout different business groups around the country, and the feedback has been nothing short of exceptional. His expertise and service are top-notch. So if you're looking for someone who not only prepares your taxes, but also helps you strategize for the future, Johnny and his team at Barranco and Associates are the ones to call. Trust me, you won't regret it. So contact Johnny Barranco today and take the first steps towards financial peace. You're not going to regret this.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about my friend Wes Cody. He's the president of C2 Wealth Strategies, a financial advisory firm dedicated to providing personalized solutions for your financial needs. Wes and his team of professionals are passionate about helping clients create wealth and achieve financial freedom. At C2 Wealth Strategies, they believe in taking a holistic approach to financial planning and are committed to building long-lasting relationships with their clients, ensuring their financial well-being every step of the way. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Contact Wes and C2 Wealth today at c2wealth.com to schedule a consultation. Let Wes and his team help you build your financial future.
What other key points about end of the year would you tell our listeners that they need to focus on?
I want you to understand this is not something that you need to go do and take your team off site and not have a plan for it. So what do you do?
Yeah.
So, and I've done that before too. I was like, we're going to get away and plan. And then I had no plan for it going into it. So it just fell flat, right? So when you look at heading into your annual meeting, how do you plan to go? And what do you do in the process that you take with your team and everyone involved of what do they bring with them?
All right. I'm pulling that up right now. So what do they bring? So we run on EOS. We use the software 90. That's 90.io. And it's so nice to have that all together. And what you do is you go over the objectives, and those objectives are, to clear away to review the year, set proper expectations for the next year. Then you do a check-in, your personal, professional highlights for the year. And again, I think people overlook that little humanizing aspect right there. And what it does is we may be going into, and I don't know these things, or maybe I do, there may be tension between a couple of team members, but what it does is humanize them. And most people will say something professional, but then something personal might be, my child got over dyslexia or something and really started to learn how to read and got a good tutor, and now they're moving in the right direction. I feel great about it. That kind of thing, or something else that's really humanizing. And because I think we forget that we're all trying to do the best we can. And so the check-in happens. We review prior year numbers. That's a P&L. That's a balance sheet. You might break that down by quarter. You might break it down month by month, however you want to do. You might do a cash flow analysis and see what your cash was at the beginning of each quarter and what it was at the end of the quarter. I mean, all those numbers sort of are, I guess, vary based on, what kind of business you run and what you look at. And then you might do a team health exercise or organizational checkup. I love a SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? What are our threats? That helps me get the team thinking strategically, about holistically the market and how we sit in the market. We do a VTO review. These are our core values. This is our go-to-market strategy. And then we review all that. Here's our 3-year plan. Here's our, 1-year plan. Here's our 5 to 10-year target. Are we still moving in the right direction? Is that what we're trying to do? And then we eventually get to, through all of that, we may be having discussions and adding issues the entire time. And then you spend a majority of your time, especially on that second day, just going through those issues and trying to address them. And then at the end of that, you start developing a plan for the next year by creating rocks for the year, goals for the year, rocks for the first quarter. And I like to make sure that we have, you asked at the beginning, what do you need to have prepared? I like to have an idea of a budget before we ever get there. And so that's what I've been working on. I sort of start the groundwork, just like some foundational pieces of where I think we can and should be going. And then I start incorporating other leaders in the group to either get some buy-in or shoot some holes through it. And I learned that I miss a lot of things in there, like, hey, you didn't think about this, or hey, if we're going to actually do that, you're going to need more people, or we're going to need more, whatever, equipment. But if I do that work couple 3 weeks before and give myself plenty of time to flesh that all the way out, we've got a pretty good budget to look at one more time and say, hey, is this going to work? Now, in full disclosure, I did that exact same thing last year and left off several key components. Number one, it was an election year. Didn't think about that. I don't know why. It's unexcusable. You could argue if, I could be fired for that, because that was egregious. Another one is we had 3 years of COVID money getting pushed into the system. So if anyone wanted a landscape job done, they would have done it in the last 3 years. And I thought we were going to grow that landscape installation department. What a dummy. And then, inflation and interest rates, just didn't factor into my very optimistic plan for 2024 that did not come out correctly. So the big lesson I'm working on right now is just everyone shoot holes through this plan and make sure I'm not being overly optimistic.
Isn't it great? It's hard to fire the guys whose name's on the building.
I know, man. Well, it's hard. But if I had a boss, we would be having several hard conversations. But I mean, and maybe this, I'm saying but, and I don't even like to say but once I knew that plan was flawed, I really did come out to the team and say immediately, hey, guys, it looks pretty obvious to me now. This is like the end of May, beginning of June, that this plan, we're going to wad it up and throw it in the trash. We're going to come up with a new plan for the second half of the year, and we did, and just trying to hit those targets.
Does team member spouses come?
No.
Got it.
Now, so in this scenario, we rent a place and we end up renting it from Tuesday night through Sunday. And so team member spouses can come at the end of the last night, and then we can hang throughout the weekend. But that doesn't usually happen. Some people leave, they got stuff going on. Kids might still have school. There's Christmas parties and programs to go to and things like that. It doesn't ever work out like that, or at least the last few years we've done it. But they do some.
Do you pre-prepare the dialogue you're going to have?
No, I just usually have at least 5 or 6, maybe 7 key issues that I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, or we need to get some real solid solutions for. It could be one department needs to really grow to make sure that it's solvent and it pulls its own weight. How is that going to happen? Because it never has been done before in the past, right? So there's one, and you might spend an hour just discussing that. You might let that rest and then discuss it again over lunch, and then come back to it finally on the last day and go, okay, this is our best plan for that. You may be having discussions about that, prefacing that we're gonna discuss this and try to come up with some solutions next week in that annual meeting. Give that some thought over the weekend, or I believe in the power of the subconscious. This sounds woo as possible, but
that sounded so. I'm gonna do yoga after this.
But I believe if you've got a problem, I think the solutions are in there somewhere. And maybe I'm over-indexing on my mental capacity. I don't know. But I think it's in there. It's just sometimes it's tough to really put all the pieces together when I'm just trying to get through my day-to-day. But if I know that that's an issue, it's going to bubble up at some point. That's why, everyone knows you get some good ideas when you're in the shower, right? Well, that's when your mind and your body is relaxed, and the subconscious can kind of let that stuff sort of float up, and it feels like it just hits you, but it's been working in the background a lot. So I like to sort of plant those seeds and then hopefully be able to address them with some good ideas when we do get to the annual meeting.
So you are a company of about 60 people?
No, there's probably close to 100 when we're full on. We're probably somewhere around 70 right now.
And how many people is in that leadership team that goes to your annual meeting?
There will be 3 on the leadership team and 1 facilitator of the meeting.
Oh.
I could see having 1 more person on the leadership team, but people with 7 or more, I think. You ever seen that diagram where like lines of communication?
Mm-hmm.
Forrest uses it all the time, and it's pretty brilliant. Where if there's 3 people, there's only so many lines of communication, so it doesn't get mixed up, right?
Right.
If there's 4, it just infinitely adds the lines of communication. You get 5, it gets even more complex. You get 7, it's like you can't keep it all together. Right. I'm all for like inclusivity. I want to be inclusive. But there really needs to be real leadership. And it takes real leadership to say, no, I can't have you in this meeting. I value your input, so let's have some conversations beforehand. But I need one clear voice that represents sales. I need one clear voice that represents operations. I need one clear voice representing finance, human resources, whatever.
That's the question I get the most when people are talking about doing their quarterly meetings and annual meetings and stuff is, what I find is that most people put way too many team into leadership.
Yeah, well, I think they're trying to abdicate their responsibility instead of actually using their responsibility and maybe having those conversations proactively.
Well,
beforehand.
and in a small business, they don't want to hurt feelings.
Right. Then they're abdicating their responsibility.
Yeah.
We were just talking with Tim. He's like, man, I can't imagine having these tough conversations, and my immediate response is, if I don't do it, who will?
Yeah, nobody will.
No one will.
They'll just stay the same.
And I said, pressure is a privilege. You've heard us say that on the podcast a lot. Pressure is a privilege. And if I'm in the position where I've got to have a tough conversation, or if I'm in the position where I've got to be the lone voice for this, well, that's a good thing. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. but there's a reason I'm there. I might want to lean into that and actually fulfill that responsibility. And if I've got team members that have lots of opinions and maybe solutions to these problems, let's have a discussion about that. I should be having one-on-ones with my team members and gathering this information before we go into the annual meeting. Or perhaps in our weekly L10s, I can take a bunch of those long-term issues or the issues if you're running those things and bring them to the annual meeting and speak for your team. But you don't need to have them all there. It just muddies the water. Who's really in charge then? Why do I need you being in that position if you're going to bring your whole damn team here? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I need real leadership. That's what business is. You can't have the defensive coordinator bring all of his linebackers or his linemen to the meeting. Can't have it.
Right.
There's just too much crap going on. I need one clear leader that can take the information, speak for them, and then go back with the plan.
I think also what it can do is it exposes their I don't want to say ignorance, but if they're ignorant in a certain matter, having the leadership, a smaller leadership team will expose that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
How so? Flesh that out for me.
Meaning, if you have someone over operations that is maybe not leading well, but may have people under them that are smarter, better.
Well, okay.
It may expose who's propping who up.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. Either way, you just can't have too many people there because it dilutes the conversation and the quality of it, I think.
Yeah.
When you've got too many voices.
And when I've been in these conversations with people that's looking at and specifically it's always around implementing EOS, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's always around who do I put on my leadership team? Who do I
Fair enough. I was right there with it. We had like 7 people on the leadership team. You didn't want to hurt feelings and all that stuff.
But what I found is every time that I guide someone through paring down their leadership team, the people that they pair out is actually relieved after they get over the initial shock.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be there anyway.
Or they end up realizing that they're better off just like staying in their lane.
Right.
I've seen that before too in my own personal business. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Vision Summit, family or solopreneur or 1 or 2, 3 people, what do you suggest on doing some sort of annual review, annual meeting to learn from the past and chart the path forward?
I was just going to say reflection on what happened. Are you where you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then future is where are you going?
Mm-hmm.
This year, I can tell you the agenda is going to be my wife and I sitting in a room talking about, because she wants to explore some different things in our personal life.
Okay.
Meaning like...
Sounded very cryptic.
Yeah, she wants to be a mom and do things where...
Oh, good. You're finally going to have a baby.
No,
That's
shut up.
Great.
No, that ain't
okay. Fun fact. This has been a point of jokes for like 5 years now.
Yeah.
Maybe 7.
Yeah.
Sorry, listeners. Carry on.
I have a 25-year-old kid. I'm not having a...
God, that would be so crazy.
No.
Okay.
And so she wants to do some things.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we're going to talk about is what are we taking off her plate?
Okay.
One of the things that we're going to talk about is how do we hire because most of our people that work with us is all contractors. So who do we fill in those positions? Or do we even do those things? I can tell you that right now, I have a service that we've been providing on the chopping block, and I'm going to determine at this meeting whether we chop it or not.
That's it's funny you're saying this because I don't know who said it, but the quote I've heard it forever and I just can't remember who said it, but they say essentially, and I'm butchering this, I'm sure, but good strategy isn't saying what we're going to do. It's first saying what we're not going to do.
Correct.
That's good strategy.
And we're going to look at very heavily in the contracts and things that we currently have, because we've gotten some contracts over the last year. Do we have the infrastructure to facilitate them? And if we don't, do we currently have the people in the right seat that need to be in the seat? And is one of those people, her?
Yeah.
Or does she want the responsibility? And so it puts you in a place with your spouse that you have to have very hard conversations about, do you have the abilities and gifts and even the knowledge to be able to facilitate
it? This all makes me think of, that whole time management quadrant.
Yep.
And one of the most important quadrant is the important but not urgent quadrant. And I think of important conversations, hard conversations, especially with a spouse, as that important, not urgent one. And the funny thing about important, not urgent is if you ignore them long enough, they become important and super urgent and oftentimes super painful. So if you don't have this conversation with your spouse or with your team leaders or direct reports, then it eventually blows up and it becomes something way worse than it ever could have been if you just address it, professionally or maturely on the front end.
Oh man, the line that you've been repeating lately just rings in my head: to be unclear is to be unkind.
To be unclear.
And man, I'm trying to implement that in every area of my life, with my children.
Yeah.
With my wife, with my team members, with
contractors,
with the contractors. To be unclear is to be unkind.
Yeah. You told Tim that you're going to tell him exactly how you want it done. He said, I bet you will. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, people can take that negatively, but the alternative is way worse. Yeah. I didn't know you wanted it that way.
How many times have I let a very insignificant thing simmer in my marriage?
Yeah.
That I could have just said something straight out. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have blown up.
Right.
So something very insignificant in my business that I didn't take care of, that I didn't speak to the person in the seat.
Yeah. Often, and the way you're saying it, I hear you. And just for conversational piece, and playing the other side is the way you're saying it comes out like I could have addressed it and corrected behavior right then. I'll say this too. The other side of that coin is I could have addressed it and learned that I was misinterpreting or misread the situation, or I didn't have all the facts. And if I don't address it, what happens is I spin it up in my head as something that is totally different. I didn't take the time to ask questions, address the situation. Here's what I'm seeing. Help me understand what I'm missing. And then I get corrected on that and I feel much better about it because I understand where they're going. Or like you were saying, and maybe you didn't mean it this way, this is just the way I heard it, is that, or maybe I do need to address it and correct behavior so we're on the same page, we're in alignment on where we're all going.
And maybe it's my behavior.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, oftentimes it's my interpretation, especially with my spouse. She's going to tell me if I address something, usually I've got it wrong. You know my wife, she'll tell me. If you're a small business owner looking to take your business to the next level, listen up. My good friend Chris Francis has spent over 20 years growing his tree care business to national success. Now he's partnered with Rick Miller, you've probably heard him here on the podcast before, Harvard MBA, and business consultant to create Roadmap for Growth, an online course to help you scale, build teams, and create systems that last. It's not just for the tree industry. This course applies to any small service business. Check out treebusiness.com or hit the link on the Overlap homepage to learn more. my question was, do you have like an agenda?
Yeah, 90.
Okay.
So we have issues.
So you use 90.
Yeah, we use 90 and we go through that.
Okay. It's very helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. If you don't have 90, one, you might look into that. It's pretty dang cheap. We actually have we have a code?
We have a code on the website, overlaplife.com.
That's how much we believe in it. We're like calling 90 saying, hey, man, we need a code for
and they don't even pay us for it. So, I mean, we get a little bit if you sign up, but other than that.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen any of it. But either way, if you don't have 90, think about getting it. But even then, like, think of an agenda and write it down. Maybe it's let's just go through it. What are the objectives? What are we trying to accomplish this meeting? Let's have a check-in. If it's just checking in with yourself, I don't know. Maybe you write down a personal and a professional highlight so you can reflect on that. I think that's reflective. I think reviewing the prior year, if it's not business, maybe it's highlights from the prior year and you could go quarter by quarter. I like doing that. It helps me to frame my mind correctly. And then what are there any KPIs that you hit, and maybe that's like, oh, one kid graduated. Yeah, I don't know what metrics in family. Maybe there are none, but you know what I'm saying. Like, are we going in the right direction? Are we winning? And then, what are the issues we're having? If you're by yourself, I don't know who you talk to about that. Maybe you get an advisor. But if you're with your spouse, what issues are we having? Maybe your wife is going to go vegetarian, and you're like, "Hey, man, that's not going to work for me. How do we adjust this?" I just made that up, but you got a chance to talk about it. I think if you do something like this, and if you can get your spouse on board, you can have tougher conversations because everyone's mind is shifted into that, and they're prepared for it.
Do you and Jordan do any kind of that?
We didn't last year for whatever reason. We didn't get away, and we didn't. But we had more. We did spend more time together throughout the year, and had more conversations. But we'll get away this year to Colorado, and we'll have at least a day or two where we'll probably go work out together. That usually kind of sets the tone. We'll go get coffee. We'll have conversations there. We'll eat lunch. And we'll have conversations there. And it's relatively informal because my wife cannot handle it. If she thinks I'm business talking her. But
even with ours, it's on a walk on the beach. It's on a walk. It's going to have lunch. And it's really, what do you want?
You ever heard of active listening?
Yeah.
Okay. Active listening. That's what I have to kind of do with Jordan. Here's a hack. She's not going to listen to this. Here's a hack. I have to sort of guide the conversations, but let her sort of walk through it. It's almost, in coaching, you call it guide. If you coach soccer, it's kind of guided discovery. You let them use the ball and try whatever. But guided discovery there is like start planting the seeds and thinking about things and asking questions and then getting it to the right direction. Not in a manipulative way, but Jordan my wife will buck any sort of like system I try to throw at her for whatever reason. She's incredibly independent. And so I have to sort of do it in a way that I'm not just barking at her like she works for me.
However, she is running one of you guys' business.
She
right
is,
now.
and we'll have like a regular business meeting for that. But I got to keep that one quick, tight, and not too long because she does not want to do it. She is a straight up doer. She doesn't want to live in the ethereal and think through things and all of that.
My
stuff.
wife's a lot that way too.
Yeah, let's get some stuff done. And I'm like, I'm with that, but can we think about where we're trying to go? And I think you and I are just visionary in that way. And God, Lee, that sounds lofty too. I think there are people that think about the day to day and thrive off of getting things done. And I think that there are dreamers that are thinking about what could be possible.
Oh yeah. And even in my family, I may be a little worse
Yeah.
What are we going to be doing in 5 years?
Yeah.
Are we going to be walking on clouds? And,
let's talk about our love.
Yeah. Don't pull that away.
But I think that's a good mix where my wife is just running that household, like really good, way better than I could. But I'm kind of thinking about retirement. I'm thinking about, what amount of money do we need to retire? How do we pay for, the last child's college? What amount of money has to go in to get it to that point? And that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty good relationship.
So we ended up not doing a quick hit.
Oh my God.
This.
How long have we been going?
We're going, what, 40 minutes, Tim?
45, 37.
So if you do annual meetings or end of the year meetings in your business, family, personal life, whatever, we want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Let us know. Hit us in the comments. And let us know what you do and what works, what doesn't. And if you're going to do your first annual meeting because of this podcast, let us know.
Oh my gosh, please. Hey, do this. Take a photo and then tag us.
Yeah, tag us.
Wes Cootie. I know you're having your annual meeting either this week or next week.
Yeah, he is.
All right. Well, cool. Sorry we went on too long on this one, but we're passionate.
We'll post pictures from our annual meeting.
Yeah, we will. Well, thanks.
Peace.